Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingman Podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey guys, Todd Helms here with the Wingmen Podcast, and I'm bringing you a special Father's Day edition of the Wingmen Podcast. I have some great guests with me sitting here today. I have Guy Eastman, Scott Reekers, and Brandon Mason. If you're fans of Eastman's big game journals and hunting TV and Beyond the Grid, you know those names. You know exactly who I'm talking about, and you can probably put names with faces. If not, that's okay. You need to head over to those YouTube channels, especially Beyond the Grid and the Eastman's hunting channel on YouTube. You need to check all that stuff out. We'll put links down here in the descriptions at the bottom for you, so it'd make it even easier for you to check out all the great content over there. First of all, happy Father's Day to you guys. Happy Father's Day to everybody, all the dads listening out there. It's kind of a cool deal to be a dad. It's something that I came to later in life and didn't really realize how much I was missing until it happened. But we had a hunt last year that the reason that the four of us are sitting in here, and these guys are with me, is we did a hunt last year, and it's going to be a webisode. We'll have it up on the Wingmen YouTube channel. But we did a goose hunt last year where it was fathers and kids. Brandon, you had your son, your oldest, out there, Hunter, with you. Scott, you had your oldest, Ella, your daughter. Guy, you had Cora out there, and I had my oldest, JC. Scott, Guy, and my daughters are all the same age, roughly. I mean, within a few months of each other, for the most part. Hunter, man, is, what's he, 15 now?
He'll be 15 next week, actually.
Oh, man. Oh, man. But the whole point of this is it was a hunt that we all kind of went on, and we were like, oh, are we even going to kill any birds? I mean, is this going to be like, what's this going to be like? Because we were taking a bunch of little kids out there. Our girls are all, they're young. They're little kids. And so they weren't hunting. They were just tagging along. And we had a cameraman, and we had it was quite the production.
Donuts.
Yeah, it was a production.
Lots of donuts.
Yeah.
Todd said bring a lot of snacks, so I just brought a whole box of donuts.
Well, that's one thing over the years I've learned with hunting with kids is take food. Take stuff for them to do. Food, books, puzzles, even if it's a little handheld video game. Keep them entertained, because if it's not fun, they won't ever want to go back. Well, I don't think fun was a problem that day.
No.
We had lots of birds, we had lots of food, we had lots of laughs.
All three little girls running out from underneath a tree with their giant sticks that they had turned into swords, and all of us ran towards them because we were a little concerned about their safety at that point. But it was highly entertaining, especially the sword that was being drug along the ground because of how large it was.
Yes. I guess what I want to do is I just want to go with each one of you guys and get your impressions about what that day was like as a dad. For you, what it meant for you, because we've all hunted for a long time. You know, we've all done different types, whether it's we've hunted big game for a long time, we've hunted birds for a long time, whatever. We're used to the hunting thing, but getting kids involved is a whole different mix, and it's one that I really love. I enjoy it. I love taking my kids out. I love taking my girls hunting. I'm taking my dad on a Father's Day fishing trip this weekend, and we're actually going to take my oldest daughter with us because she said she wanted to go. So why not? I love doing that stuff. But I'm going to start with you, Brandon, because you had, we walk down, we leave the trucks, we don't know what we're getting into, and there are birds everywhere. I mean, it was awesome. But we're trying to get Hunter Man his first goose.
Right.
And it worked out that way. But tell us what that was like from your perspective, as a dad.
Well, the last 2 or 3 years has been a lot of firsts for him in the hunting world. I mean, this year he got his first goose, last year his first duck, he's gotten his first elk, his first mule deer, his first antelope. I mean, just
turd, man.
The last 3 years have just been really fun. And, you always hear that it's always a lot more fun to take your own kids out than yourself once they get to that age. And he's going to be 15 next week, and I've been waiting, almost 15 years for all these moments to happen, and they're here, and it's cool because we hear, or we just getting to see the excitement that they have, and the pure joy that they have out in the field is priceless. And it was fun seeing him. He's a older brother of 3 sisters, and so seeing him with those 3 little girls.
Yeah.
Here, there's what? How old are they? 4?
They were
5.
My daughter was 4 at the time.
Okay, yeah, 4 and 5, depending on the girl, and they were out playing freeze tag, and pretty soon you hear them yelling, "Hunter, come out and play freeze tag with us!" And he's 14 and trying to be a good sport.
Well, and they were pretty into those little girls' credit, man. They were into the hunt for quite a while.
Yeah, they were.
They were in the blind, and the birds were working and decoying, and they were checking it out. They were into it for quite some time. But it was a beautiful day. It was December.
Yeah.
January. It was
January.
Yeah.
When it was crazy warm that day.
Bluebird skies, and really a crappy day for waterfowl hunting usually.
Right.
But, because of your guys' scouting and efforts, we had a great spot on the river and a good blind that you guys built. And so it's perfect environment to take them out to where they weren't, it wasn't 20 below with 30 mile an hour winds and snow in your face to where you're worried about their safety and they're miserable and never want to do it again. If they remember that, it's etched in their memory, and they'll want to do it again and again, hopefully. So,
well, Guy said something while we were on that hunt that day. We'd shot up a group of geese, and we were mopping up birds on the water, and the dogs were working and doing different stuff. And we were out getting a bird, and Guy looked at me and he said, "This is when you have to get them hooked. Mm-hmm. Because if you wait until they're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, they're going to have other interests in their life by then that are going to compete for that hunting passion." Especially
in today's world, there is just a lot of things for kids to do and be involved with, even compared to when we were all kids. There's so much at their fingertips, and there's so many activities, and whereas, I don't know about you guys, but where I grew up, there's baseball, football, and basketball. They each had their season. Video games were kind of a new thing that not everybody had. It wasn't as common. There were definitely no handheld games yet. Or at least nothing like, I know, at least not to this, no smartphones, no nothing at the time. And there's just a ton of other things that can take their attention away from the outdoors. And I think that's part of why we're seeing some of the craziness in our culture too, is that people have forgotten some of those basics in life. And it's nice that we can live in a place where we can get out there and do that and have our kids, take part in that stuff.
Absolutely. So getting right down to the hunt itself, I know Hunter was pretty excited. He's, like you said, we had been on his first elk hunt earlier that year. He'd killed another big mule deer last year. He's had some amazing firsts. Mm-hmm. And you'd think, first goose, whatever. It's still a big deal.
Well, and he was nervous too because, I'll be honest, we don't spend as much time with the shotguns as we do with the rifles and with our bows and everything. And so he wasn't as practiced probably as he should have been. And that's on me, of course, for not getting him out there. But we've shot a little bit in clay pigeons and everything, but not where he's extremely comfortable. And plus, even though he knows all you guys, there's still a little bit of a pressure thing there. Sure. And, or having a dad and all of his friends that work at a place like Eastman's, and all the hunting and gear testing and try to be knowledgeable to help educate everybody else too, because not everybody has these opportunities we do. There's a little pressure there. I forget about being his dad because it's a day-to-day thing, but in the back of his mind, he's like, man, I better not miss. Kind of with a lot of people here, and what if I look like an idiot? But no, he did a good job.
I thought so. I specifically remember the bird that he shot, because there's birds come in and everybody stands up and shooting, and you're pretty sure you got that one, but you don't know if somebody else, you know what I mean? That particular bird, it was like, you can tell I'm 2 people away, and I can hear his shotgun going off and him shooting, and he shot once, and I could kind of see it lining up, and that second shot he shot, and that bird folded at the shot.
Well, and the funny part is because he doesn't know, he's not used to seeing that for sure when because there's so much action, like you said, with birds. or with waterfowl anyway, a lot of times that you're not sure if you're the one that hit it or not, and there was so much shooting going on. He was unsure. We were like, nice shot, and he looked at me, I don't know if I'm the one that hit that thing.
There was no doubt in my mind. I remember, and guys, the bird you killed too was the same way. I was standing next to Guy, and I was like looking right down the gun barrel, bang, and the bird folds. You know, and you do it enough, and you get to, you can kind of tell who's doing what, and there was no doubt about it. So we were stoked about that because here's the hunter got his first goose, and then we've got all these little girls in the blind running around. And Scott, you're like Yukon Cornelius that day, man. You hauled this sled in there with you. There must have been 100 pounds of stuff in that sled.
Did I? Was that the morning No, that was a different morning. I hauled the whole bag down there. That was the morning that Ike actually came with us. I hauled a thing that had a ton of gear in there. And that was good for Ella to see that there's some work involved in that. But yes, I'm kind of the big dumb animal, so I get roped into hauling a lot of the gear sometimes. I'm sure if you've watched any of our Wingman episodes, you've picked up on that with Todd and I a few times, that I get roped into doing some of those things. So no, there was a lot of gear in there that we hauled extra decoys in, I believe.
We hauled a few, yeah.
Was Duck closed that weekend?
Yes, Duck had just closed.
Yeah, so we had to haul in more goose decoys, if I remember right. And part of it was just the sheer numbers game. There were so many geese that were on that island. We wanted to make it look as authentic as possible. And so, we hauled in a whole bunch more and, made it look really good. And so that was fun. Like seeing the girls get excited while we were putting out all the decoys, because they've never seen that, so they've never seen what goes into that, and each of us checking with each other. Does that look good? Yeah, I think it looks good. Does that look good? Okay, yeah, that looks good. It's funny when you're sitting there that you're asking each other, and you're all just verifying your own, I don't want to say egos, but own thoughts, and so, and of course we rearranged it like 5 different times after different birds did different things, the usual waterfowl hunters game that you play with
the decoy
decoys.
Shuffle. Absolutely.
So that was fun getting to see them, look at that, and then for Ella, the coolest part was she was asking to go again later. I knew she was having fun while we were doing it. She went dove hunting with me, and we've done some shooting and different things together. Just it's a slow exposure thing, as far as, she's younger than both JC and Cora.
She was the youngest of the bunch.
And of course, she's got her daddy's genetics. You would have never known she was the younger based on her physical stature.
They're all the same size.
Yeah.
If you look at the photos from that day, all 3 of those girls are like, doot, doot, doot. They're all the same size.
Yep. It was pretty funny to see that. So that was the biggest win. And so my dad and I ended up bringing Ella turkey hunting, where we actually did 2 nights in a tent. And that's a big deal for a 4-year-old.
Sure.
And so I had prefaced it to Dad when we left and headed over there. I was like, so here's the deal. If we get 1 night, I'm thrilled. If we get 2 before she starts getting bored and it's uncomfortable and miserable, we're going to let her set the tone for this. I'm not going to push anything. If we see turkeys, if I can get any turkeys to decoy before she starts freaking out, we're happy. Well, so that was the win, because that translated from that goose hunt. But one of her first questions was, are we going to have friends come along? Do we get to have this be a social experience? Was her, and so getting to play, I was like, no, we're not going to be playing freeze tag on this hunt. But that was a direct result of going on that hunt and being there. And, she's a sucker for a donut too. So, knowing that.
Who isn't?
Well, that's true, obviously. Yeah. But she was thrilled to go along and do that. So that was fun. Her getting to see what Dad does a lot of during the winter was fun.
Well, and that was kind of the whole point of the deal, was get them out, get them in the field, and let them have fun, let them make it a positive experience. And to hear that she asked to go again later, that's a huge win, because it's not always like that. I got a chance to spend some time with some kids outside of our circle, our immediate circle here, that don't live in the hunting world. They're not exposed to it on a regular basis. And watching, it was in an outdoor setting, and watching my kids try to interact with those kids in an outdoor setting was eye-opening. And our kids, I think we take a little bit of that for granted because we live in Wyoming and we get outside with our kids a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think we take for granted that a lot of people in the country their kids aren't raised that way.
Yeah.
And so seeing things might be, maybe watching something like picking up a dead goose, that might be, I'm not touching that. Or, wet conditions or cold or whatever it might be is totally foreign to them. So it's really important to me as a dad to raise my kids in those environments. And it wasn't that long ago, guys. We remember, we're all roughly the same age, and we remember our dad's generations where you didn't take women hunting. Women didn't hunt. If you had daughters, they stayed home. Mm-hmm. And so for us to taking our daughters, our little kids out there too, I say good for us. I mean, I really do. And I think more dads need to be doing that. And I think you can do it at a younger age than you really think too.
Well, and even if they don't grow up to be avid outdoors people like we all are or whatever, the biggest thing with me, like I said, I have 3 girls, and until they're 18, then they can decide if they want to continue hunting or not. But until that time, they're going to be in the outdoors with me.
Right.
Even if it's just on a simple antelope hunt or one of the easier goose hunt that we did with the hunt we're talking about today. But like I tell my wife, I expect my children to be active participants in wildlife conservation. And then when they get to be adults, they're informed members of the voting public.
Right.
And then if they get married and their husband is an outdoorsman, they have a little better understanding of why he loves it so much.
Absolutely.
And it's just kind of the complete picture rather than, I mean, my 3 girls don't live for it. They like being outside, and we do, like you said, we live the life. But if they got to stay home, they'd be fine with that.
Sure.
But they don't have that option in my house. So they're gonna, and I'm not domineering about it. I'm not mean about it, but I know the goodness that comes from being in the outdoors and experiencing that. And even if they don't live for it, they need to understand it, be aware of the world around them, and understand how things work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to segue into, I've got a guy sitting here who hasn't had a chance to talk yet, but
probably for good reason.
We've teased Guy, and Guy has teased us with the whole wingman process, that one day we'd get him in a blind, and it was, nope, not going to happen, not going to happen, not going to happen. And lo and behold, a couple days before this whole hunt transpired, Guy walks in my office and said, "You guys hunting this weekend?" I said, "Yeah." "I want to go." I said, "Okay, cool, sounds great." Well, I get a text message later on that says, "Well, this just turned into a rodeo." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "My daughter wants to go." And my first response was, "Sweet, this will be fun." That's how it turned into the father-daughter, father-kid thing. Was all because of Guy's daughter wanted to go. And it's like, heck yeah, we can make that happen. So that's how we got Guy Eastman in the goose blind. And
I literally got booby-trapped by it, literally by my wife. My daughters watched that Yeti film, that Sam, one about the Labrador, I bet 20 times. She loves that film, and she watches it over and over and over. And one day she watched it and she said she wanted to go bird hunting. I thought, oh, Christ, here we go. And my wife says, "Well, don't you guys have a bird lease or a duck lease down there?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Why don't you take Cora down there and go hunting?" I thought, oh, boy, what have I got myself into? And that's what started it all, the ball rolling. And I thought, oh, the guys are going to kill me for this.
So instead of...
When I said Cora wanted to go, I remember sending Todd that text. I thought, oh, boy, this is going to be interesting. Then everybody's kids were coming, and it changed it all.
But I think that's what made the hunt, having the 3 little girls there, and then plus them, I think them seeing Hunter actually enjoying it as a little bit older kid. You know, when you're younger and you see an older kid and like, they're cool.
Yeah.
just because they're older.
Right.
It has nothing to do with whether they're actually cool or not. They're just older, you know. And so them seeing that, and then plus, like I said, the three of them playing there together. I mean, how many games of freeze tag did we watch them play?
Oh my goodness!
I just loved it. I was at, we were at the sort of the left, I guess, end of the blind, the north end of the blind.
Yeah.
And Hunter and I would look back because he's all camoed up like we are. He's got a sick on and everything.
and they weren't.
And
they
when you
were
look back,
pink and purple and turquoise.
oh dude, it's like
and-
between the colors on the donuts and the colors on the clothing. I told
know how we
him,
got
I said,
burned in.
I've never seen so much pink and purple in a goose blind before in my life, but it was awesome, and they did good. I mean, every time we would tell them to be still, or birds are coming in, they'd
They'd
like
hunker
little
right
statues.
down. Yep, they were like
good.
little statues. And when we were out playing freeze tag, we were like, at first I remember we're all kind of like, well, this isn't going to work. Good grief. And then we just holler at them, birds!
Yep.
And they'd get down. They'd go hide in the sagebrush or underneath the tree, and we still killed geese.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It was
and
good.
that was. I remember we're walking in there that morning, and guy looks at me. He goes, "Are we even gonna kill any birds today?" And we got in there, and the birds got up off the river shortly after that, and
Oh,
it
there's
was
so many of them.
A couple
chaos.
hundred birds flew up.
Yeah, it was chaos. And I turned around and looked at the guy. I was like, "I think we're in good shape."
The
And then
fact
they
that
just-
we killed so many geese didn't really help my respect for bird hunters.
Come on now.
Given the situation, holy smokes, there's no way we should have shot anything.
Yeah, Todd and I ground out this year. This is since I've lived in Powell, this was the hardest year bird hunting that I've had here, just because of the weather, the extreme changes and things like that. And so even with those 200 birds getting up, I wasn't positive we were going to have as good a day as we did.
That was the spot we did the video for Onyx for. That was the spot that Onyx said, "Hey, we'd really like you guys to help us put together a video about finding a spot to build a blind. How do you do that? How do you go about that? How does Onyx fit into that?" And so we did. And it's on the YouTube channel. It's there for everybody to see. And it turned out really, really well. But one of the things we did is we looked at that specific piece, knew where the birds wanted to be, used our knowledge of how the birds move up and down the river, and then used Onyx to go, that's it, right there. And we went in, and then we put boots on the ground that day. And we had to adjust a little bit from what we were looking at on the computer screen, but not much.
Yeah.
And that spot turned out to be absolute money in the bank.
Yes, it
we
did.
killed birds every time we went. Not to mention, we didn't just kill birds. We shot limits almost every single time we went. And the only reason we didn't limit that day with the kids is we went, that's enough. We literally cut
Yeah, we
ourselves
could've stayed
off.
out.
We could have stayed out. But it had gotten to the point where the weather was warm. The kids were, I don't think they were really over it. They were still having fun, but it was enough.
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
enough
It
of
was
a
time.
hunt. And,
Well, and sometimes with waterfowl, it's days like that where it kind of reminds me of antelope hunting sometimes from this, not the style of hunting, but just sometimes you're in their way. You know what I mean? So even if you do everything wrong, you're still going to have opportunities at animals because they want to be there.
Yep.
I've had antelope almost run me over in the field for that same reason. It's like, why? I was standing out in the middle of nothing. Why did he come running that way? Because he wanted to be there, and I was in his way. And
Yeah,
it's the same
and
way with waterfowl. A lot of
it
times,
is.
if they make up their mind, they're coming in. And there's some days you work your butt off, and they should be coming in, and they don't. But there's other days where it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. You can be doing jumping jacks, they're going to come in.
And a big part of that goes into the scouting aspect.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
always said that the key to being a successful waterfowler is windshield time. You have to spend time driving around, finding birds, finding the X, and watching them and figuring out, okay, they don't want to be just in that field. They want to be in that specific spot in the field. And if you're not there, you're not going to kill birds.
Yeah.
And so guy can throw us under the bus if he wants, but
You know I will. I'm waiting to pounce. So go ahead.
but there is one of the best things. I mean, we are obviously, Wingmen is tied to Eastman's. Eastman's is our parent company, and Eastman's is all about Western trophy big game. That's what it is. So we do reference a lot of big game in what we talk about with Wingmen because we spend September, October, and the first part of November hunting big game. That's what we do. Our bird seasons don't really get cranking out here. Our waterfowl seasons don't really get cranking out here until that time, till November, December, January, and then into February. One of the things that is so great about having our seasons come after big game is big game's pretty serious. We're in the field testing gear. We're filming TV shows. We're doing stuff for the YouTube channel. There's skin in the game. You know, you can't just go out and be willy-nilly about it. Things have to be intentional. So there's some pressure. Now, it's fun, but there's some pressure to it as well. And with waterfowl, yes, we're filming. Yes, we're testing gear, but it's a different mindset. It's a different attitude. And being able to go out and take 3 little girls out wearing pink, purple, and green and still have fun, kill birds, laugh, eat donuts. Guy says, you guys aren't, this isn't a duck hunting. He goes, this is just a coffee club with shotguns. That's all this is.
I forgot about that.
I remember that.
I know why you guys go out every morning.
Yep.
You guys get donuts every time you go
coffee
out.
I thought you
club
guys
with
were out
shotguns.
doing work.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, I think that I don't know how you found it on X or whatever, but it's the perfect spot right there. It's a big horseshoe bend in the river, and that bluff shades it in the morning sun, so you're always in the shade till way past when you should be with that blind.
Yes.
And they can't see you if they come over that bluff off those fields until it's too late.
You blindside them.
Yeah.
And they come over and they see decoys and they
And
want
can't
to be
see
there
you from
anyway.
left to right because you're out on the peninsula on
Yes.
there. It's a perfect spot.
Yep.
Granted, most of the time I was looking at the river, analyzing the fishing holes, thinking I should come down here this summer and go fishing. But
Yeah.
I couldn't help but notice the geese flying over every once in a while.
Yeah.
The shotguns going off.
Yeah. No, it was
Wasn't that the day of Mackinaw's epic retrieve as well?
Yes.
nice segue.
Oh.
I was just going to talk about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
we
was-
had there was just a lot of cool stuff that happened that day. One of the things that I remember the most was the girls cheering for the dogs.
Yeah, that was cool.
And they'd go out and the dogs would be getting birds and they'd be go like little cheerleaders out there. And I was laughing. I thought that was so funny. But
Mouthful of donuts cheering on
yeah,
the dog. And
yeah, exactly.
They were trying to pet the dogs, and the dogs had wanted nothing to do with them.
Yep, we're working.
They
Leave
were
us
pretty
alone.
confused by that.
Yeah.
Why don't the dogs want to be petted?
Yep.
No,
They're not at
they're
home right
working
now. They have a job to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so we had a group come in, and we shot a couple geese, and they fell, in the decoys. But one goose kind of sailed and died on that bluff that you're talking about across the river, quite a ways out.
Yep.
The dogs had no idea where that bird was. It was a completely blind retrieve, and there was probably 200 yards, I'm guessing, by the time you factor the river, the bank, and where
I
the
would
bird
say at
fell.
least that, yeah.
It's a ways. It's a ways. And we knew the bird went down and was like dead by the way it fell. And so I sent Mackinac, lined him up, and I sent him. And there was one particular spot where it's a little easier for him to dog or even a human to get up and down. But he went to the left of that because when he got over there, he could smell the bird scent wafting over the top of that bluff. And he went right up on that line, that scent line. And it was like the most difficult part of the whole bluff to traverse.
Yep.
Pretty much vertical, especially at the end. And he got to the end, worked his way up. Again, we got this on video. It's on the YouTube channel. It actually kind of went semi-viral on Facebook, which is really cool. And we'll drop that link in the description down here so you can check that out. But he got to the top, and it's like straight up. And he had to jump. And he jumped up and grabbed the lip of the bluff. And Brandon, you said this perfectly. It was like watching a human do a pull-up.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen a dog do. I've seen dogs dive after ducks, after they've been hit, and go down and get them in the water after several attempts, and that was impressive. A friend of mine's yellow lab did that years ago. I've seen a lot of amazing upland retrieves and everything, but I can picture that in my head. It's ingrained in my brain watching him, doing that pull up, and it looked like a broad-shouldered man just boosting himself up there. And then he comes back with a goose that's almost the same size as him.
Yeah.
And comes all the way down that thing again. I'm serious.
On
it
the
was
video,
one of the
that's
most,
where you get a real sense of how steep that is.
Yeah.
Is when he's coming down with
Yeah.
the bird in
Yeah.
his mouth. Because there's one point where he kind of like almost free falls and catches himself. You know, you think, and Guy's commentary in the background on the video is hilarious because he's watching this. I remember him saying, "Oh, we're not going to get that goose," and I thought, "Well, I'm going to try, you know, and get the dog over there and see if he can do it." And he does it, and we were all flabbergasted.
Right.
I mean, we're cheering and yelling and having a good time, but it was neat for me. Having the kids there was a huge deal as a dad, and then having Hunter shoot his first goose, having you killed your first goose on that day, and then watching Guy get a little taste of, all right, now I think I understand a little bit about why these guys like this so much, because this is pretty cool. He probably won't admit that, but you know, whatever.
I did not eat a donut.
Yeah. But anyway, that whole deal was just captured, and it's seared in my mind. My girls, JC, my daughter, talks about that hunt to this day. She wants to. When are we going to do that again, Daddy? I said, well, it's not season right now, but she loves it. She wants to be out there, wants to be a part of that. As a dad of daughters, that I don't see gender when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're just out there with Dad. That's my kid. We're gonna go hunting. That's just what we do. I've had JC in the blind when it was 0. So that day when we were out goose hunting was beautiful. It was warm, nice. But she's gone out and suffered too, and she kind of gets it. But she sees my enthusiasm. Hunter sees your enthusiasm. Cora sees your enthusiasm. Ella sees your enthusiasm, Scott, and that's going to translate to our younger kids as well. And they see that and how much we like it. At 4, 5, 6 years old, they can't almost not help but like it. Mm-hmm. And that plays into what Guy said that day about you got to get them hooked now. Because if we wait till they're 10 years old, it's too late. They're dealing with, like you said, video games and sports or social media or other kids. There's lots of stuff that's trying to grab their attention in our world. And so getting them out now is, you got to do it. And that day for me, I look back on all the days in the field over the last even 5 years. That day's a standout for me. And it wasn't the fastest, best shooting. It wasn't the greatest hunt, hunting wise, but it was the greatest hunt because of who was involved, what we did. I don't know.
Well, and the cool thing is too, we couldn't have foreseen all this nonsense that's happening around the globe at that time because it hadn't really started yet. But you see a lot of people freaking out too because they don't know how to provide for themselves. They don't know how to furnish their own meat or grow gardens or whatever. And that's another component of all this that we really haven't talked about either. It's not just that they're having fun and okay with hunting from the way we've always understood it, but there's been an elevated awareness, I guess, of people wanting to know where their food comes from.
Absolutely right.
And, of course, all of us have lived that life. We understand that. It's second nature. But it's hard for us to comprehend there's people in this country that don't get that. And now they're desperately trying to figure it out. Like, well, how do I get a hunting license? How do I shoot a gun? How do I process the animal? How do I do all that? And if we're raising our kids to be that the whole time, then that they don't have to worry about that. I even had our investment guy for my family's finances and our retirement and all that. I was talking to him through all this. Of course, his life's been a little crazy, with all this stuff going on, but he's pretty even keel. And he said, you know what? I've heard about all these people not having food or grocery stores being empty. He said, I deal with a lot of clients. And he said, your family was the first family I thought of when all this stuff really went nuts, because he said, I don't hunt. I don't do all this stuff. I don't have a garden. I don't know how to I don't live that life. He lives in a bigger city. And he said, the first family I thought of out of all my clients was, well, I bet the Masons aren't too worried.
Yeah.
And he was right. We didn't freak out.
Yeah,
we weren't
we didn't
worried at
either.
all about any of this
We
stuff.
didn't either. And we live under a rock out here in Wyoming compared
Yeah.
to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
You go to our grocery stores, our meat cases were always full.
Yeah.
Toilet paper was an issue.
For about 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
But I talked to, not that long ago, I had an opportunity to spend a whole day with a guy from a major metropolitan area. And we were in the outdoors. We were fishing. And he flat out told me, he's like, it was flat out scary. He said, and it's still not normal. But he said, I am totally investing in the hunting thing. I'm investing myself in that. I want to learn how to hunt. I want to learn how to provide. He said, I'm learning how to garden this summer. That's a goal. I'm putting up garden boxes on the windowsills and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got to get out of the city. My next few years, I'm getting out of the city. I think we're going to see a major influx of people from cities into the country. It's already happening, and I think we're going to see that as well in the hunting space. I think our marshes and fields might be a little more crowded in the years to come. Which, as for the future of hunting is concerned, I'm all for it. I'm good. That's good. That's a good thing. But that goes back into what we were saying about getting our kids involved, because they're the ones that are going to be raised with this and doing it. They are really that next generation to kind of lead that charge. And we're looking at girl dads here, guys. Hashtag girl dads. We're all girl dads. Scott, you have a young son. I have a son on the way. God willing, he will show up the second week of archery elk season.
Nice work, Todd.
Yeah, I
Nice
wasn't
work.
thinking about that. But actually I was. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I digress.
We know what you were thinking.
So I just want to wrap this one up with some final thoughts, because this has been, we've talked about the hunt, we've talked about the day, what it meant to each of us. Obviously, I think we're all coming at it from a dad's perspective, and even though it meant something different to us, we're all looking at it with a shared vision there. But Guy, final thoughts.
We've hit on it. I think it's important to get your kids out there early, like we said. Not wait till they're 12 or 14 and then try to. I think way too many people try to do that, and I think people also think that it's not worth taking them out there unless they can participate. Like, oh, they're not old enough to hunt yet. Well, it doesn't really matter, because to a 5-year-old, those girls didn't want to pull the trigger. They didn't even know what that was about. They just wanted to be there and experience it. You don't have to wait till they're 12 or 14 and participating to take them out there. You got to imprint them when they're young so they're not freaked out. There was one of those girls that was freaked out by a dead goose or blood or whatever. I mean, those dogs, it is. Their faces are covered with blood in the water. They're picking up, playing with the feet on the geese and the beaks, and, they've never seen anything like that. At least Cora hasn't. And she was picking them up and getting her photo taken, and she's never been afraid of dead stuff, because she's helped me skin cougars and Cape Out elk and stuff in my garage. So she's just used to it. That's her world.
Right.
You grab some 10-year-old from the city and try to unload that on them, you're going to get a different reaction. I guarantee it.
I've seen that happen. You remember a number of years ago when you shot that whitetail in Montana, and you didn't need the meat and asked if I wanted it, and when we were cutting that up in my shop, I had a bunch of relatives there. It was around Thanksgiving, and they all live in not completely rural places, but yet they just don't get out. They just don't do the things that, like what we've been talking about. And a couple of them actually dry heaved. Like my nephews that were about 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that age group. And I remember a hunter was so innocently confused as to what was going on. He stood there with this uber confused look on his face, looking at his cousins and friends, that they're all close together playing and having fun. And then they see this dead deer in our shop, and almost having a meltdown on Hunter. I remember just this confused look on his face, like I don't get it. Like what did you see? Like he's looking past the deer. Like what did you see, a mouse or something, or what's going on in here? So confused. But you're right. I mean, it's so important early on to do that.
Final thoughts, Brando?
My final thoughts, I guess, just sitting here thinking, listening to all of our conversations and getting our kids involved, is just being. I think we all take for granted what our dads did for us, because to us this is normal, and it's easy to, when you get to be adults, you have disagreements with your parents, or maybe you don't see eye to eye on things anymore, on certain things. But man, we take for granted how much they did for us, got us involved in the outdoors, and the lifestyle that we live and lead now is all because of that, upbringing that we've been talking about. And man, talk about being blessed and having parents that were in tune with that. And I don't even know if they did it intentionally to keep us out of trouble with anything else, like we've kind of been talking some of the benefits are, but it's just who we were. It's what we did. And man, am I thankful.
Scott?
And I feel like we've covered it pretty well. It was thoroughly enjoyable to go on this hunt, and hopefully we can do it again this year.
Cora asked the other day if she could go goose hunting. I was like, it's fishing season. What does season mean? So I had to explain that.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time and for joining me here and kind of reliving, definitely a highlight for me, and revisiting all your final thoughts. I couldn't agree more with everything that you guys said, from Guy talking about you got to get them early, you got to get them now, to, Scott talking about taking his dad and his daughter turkey hunting, what that actually transitioned into for them in the spring. And then, Brandon, your point about what our dads did for us, I think if you're blessed enough and lucky enough to have your dad still with you this Father's Day, you might just want to take a minute and say thanks. More than just for, hey, Dad, thanks. We have a tendency as guys to do that. Be specific. Tell them, thanks for raising me in the outdoors. Thanks for teaching me how to hunt. Thanks for taking me fishing. Thanks for teaching me how to trap. Whatever it may be, because without their influence, none of us would have done this either. Mm-hmm. I remember my dad. One of the reasons that bird hunting and that waterfowl is so ingrained in my DNA is, it seems like it's in my DNA. It's probably a little deep for that, but my dad took us. And there was nothing, the water was never too cold. It didn't matter if it was snowing, we were out there. And he took us, and he made us suffer through it. And there were days that weren't fun, but man, there were a lot of days that were too. Mm-hmm. And that just sparked a massive love for that in my life. And I want to have that passion with my kids. I want that to transition, getting them hooked on stuff now. I want that to transition into big game hunting. I want that to transition into trapping, working with dogs, the shooting sports. There's so much more that you can do than just taking your kids hunting. Take them to the skeet range. Take them when you're working your dog next week after this. Take them out. Take them with you. Take them camping. Whatever it might be, take them fishing. Put them in a drift boat when you're out fly fishing. Guy and I do that all the time too. Getting them involved is priority number one.
One Father's Day I saw in one of the newsletters I get, they asked 1,000 kids what they wish they would have done when they were young with their fathers, or what was their favorite thing to do with their fathers, and it was fishing and camping were number one. Beat out baseball game, going to a game.
Really?
Number 1 and 2. So it's outdoor activities. The kids want to do it.
That's awesome.
And I mean, hunting I'm sure was on the list.
Sure.
But,
sure.
It's at least with kids in general, is fishing and camping. Number 1 and 2. They want to be outside doing outdoor activities, learning, nature, learn about the natural world. And these are, not kids just in Wyoming. They're,
right.
It's a random sampling nationwide. Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's cool. That's
so
surprising.
Your kids want
to
go, even when I think you think they don't. But that's the whole thing of starting them early. Because the later they get, the more, or the older they get, the later you wait, the less they want to take that on. They want to do other things.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's important. It's the most important thing you can do.
I
as a
couldn't
dad,
agree
in my
more,
opinion.
and I think that's a great note to end on. It's important. Get them out there. Get them out there. Take them hunting. Take them fishing. Take them camping. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it, because
Yeah.
that's what they're going to remember.
In fact,
Guys-
some of the adventures that aren't perfect
Are
might
the best
be the
ones.
best ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't agree
I know,
more.
and as a dad, you always want it to be perfect, and then you start thinking about it. Go, well, they don't know.
They have no idea.
They
how
don't
bad or
know
good
this is a
was.
disaster,
And that goose hunt was that.
and they think
That's what it was.
It's great.
Yeah, we were kind of worried about how it was going to turn out. Oh, they're wearing pink. Who cares?
Yep.
We had a great time. They had a great time, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and that picture with you with that one of the graders that we shot
Yeah.
with the wing spread and the girls. I mean, what a priceless image.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that film.
Yeah, it's
It'll
gonna
be fun.
it's gonna be a good one. We're working on it right now, and should have had it out for Father's Day, but we didn't quite get on the ball. So that's what this podcast was about. We wanted to bring you that, talk to you about that, and we hope you enjoyed this podcast, guys. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
too.
All right.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks for being here. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us on another installment of a Wingman podcast. We hope you enjoyed this one. Drop down in the comments and leave us a comment. Let us know what other topics, what you want us to talk about. Just give us some general feedback. We're just getting this thing going, so we appreciate all that you can help us with. And until next time, we'll see you in the field.